All right, welcome back. So in the previous recording, we asked the question, why is it that the Industrial Revolution started in Britain? And we gave one of the first reasons, which is because there was a population explosion in Britain. Why was that? Because there was a wider choice in terms of food. People became healthier. They had healthier lives. Healthier lives meant longer lives, and there was a decrease in the death rate, and you also have more people being born. In addition, so the plagues ended, mm, and then also there were some medical discoveries that helped people survive, to weather affliction. Now, what were the consequences of these developments? So you have more people, so you have potentially, and this what actually happened. You know, you have more people who could go into the labor force. You have more people who could work in the factories. Okay. At the same time, if you had more people, that also meant that, you know, you have more people who could buy your goods. So you have more consumers. So these are important consequences of this population explosion. More people in the factories, more people to buy goods. Secondly, Britain at this time was already, a naval power, and on top of that, a colonial power. So Britain had the advantage of being able to extract raw materials from its colonies all around the world. So this is the British Empire. In 1850, this is a representation of, you know, the all those areas, all those territories controlled by Britain. So Britain could extract those raw materials, for instance, cotton, and these were relatively cheaper compared to, for instance, growing cotton in the UK, and other raw materials. And then also at the same time, the colonies were also markets for goods. So what the European powers did at this time, the colonial powers, was to, get raw materials from extract raw materials from their colonies, use those raw materials, process them, and then create finished goods, ship those finished goods back to the colonies and sell them. Okay. Now, another reason is that there were innovations in farming. You might not think that this is important, but remember that human civilization, you know, the kind of civilization that we've had, the civilizations that we've had in history, they were made possible by one great innovation, which was agriculture. People learned how to farm. And now, you know, you see, you have to understand that for a long, long time, farming was done in the same way. Okay? So if you remember your S4 history, how land was divided among the peasants, in the medieval manner, etc. So that kind of farming lasted until the 18th century. But around this time, things were changing. People discovered better or developed better farming methods that meant that they could produce more food and produce, goods, consumable goods more efficiently. So that means, you know, less effort or less use of resources, but higher yield, higher production. So for instance, in farming, you have the enclosure system, which was introduced around this time. So that meant farmers could use their land more efficiently. They could limit the spread of diseases, and they could produce a greater variety of crops. Okay, that's not only good for business, but that's also good for the soil. Okay, and also, new techniques uh, for breeding animals. So, you know, animal breeders were able to produce better, bigger, and more productive animals, and the animals that could, that were more valuable because maybe they had more meat. Okay, they were bigger, they were healthier, and so on. So if you had more food, that would lead to a greater population. And the inverse is also true. If you have a bigger population, that bigger population would need food. Okay? If you had a greater population, that meant more people for the factories. And like we said before, more people, okay, in general meant, there were more consumers to buy your products. So you can understand that all of this was interconnected. A development in one area definitely had effects, also in other areas. This is just an illustration of the enclosure system here. Okay, this illustration is closer to, the medieval kind of farming, and then here you have enclosure. So actually in Britain, Parliament passed enclosure acts requiring farmers to do it this way, do it in the modern, in the newer way. Another reason why is it that the Industrial Revolution happened in Britain? Great Britain is lucky in that it had resources. So resources that were, necessary for a country to industrialize. So coal, for instance, so that's necessary in order to warm up water and to produce steam. And later on, the steam engine would also be invented, so you needed coal for that. Steam was used to power machines, and you needed machines in order to, increase production. Britain also had, iron, a lot of iron ore, and that's necessary for building machines. So again, you can understand that if you developed an industry like mining, and you had these resources, that this was totally advantageous for you. Lastly, we already mentioned some of this. Why Britain? Because this, in this country, inventions, innovations, discoveries were encouraged. There were prizes for the newest inventions, for making, let's say, factory production faster, more efficient, more productive. And I can give you a couple of examples of people who contributed to, efficiency, to greater production. So you have, for instance, in the textile industry, the development of new machines. For instance, a good example is James Hargreaves' spinning jenny. Why is this important? Because, this machine could spin 8, cotton threads at the same time. Okay, and if you had cotton threads, then you could produce more clothes. So this machine enabled people to, to produce so much more than, let's say, compared to one person working at home on one machine doing it manually. Another great invention, James Watt's steam engine. So this was a new power source that was cheap, okay? And thanks to this invention, so this was another source of power. You can, steam engine could be used in different settings like mining in the factories to power boats, okay, etc. So, something like this, an invention like this actually connected industries in different sectors. So if you had a steam engine, you also, like we said, you needed coal, okay? You needed iron to build the machine itself. So you have the mining industry there, and you could help improve the transportation industry. And if you had better transportation, you reduced travel time, transportation time. That also affected other sectors and industry in a positive way. So there you have it. Okay. Again, these are the different reasons why the Industrial Revolution started in Britain. Okay. Let me just say it again. You have population explosion. Connected to that, medical discoveries. As a consequence, a larger population, okay, a bigger workforce, and then you have more consumers. Britain had colonies from which it could extract raw materials. In Britain, people developed new farming methods so that more food was produced. Okay, farming became more efficient. Britain had resources that were important for industry, coal and iron. And this period in Britain also saw, very helpful inventions and great inventions that changed, improved different industries and areas in society. There you have it. So I hope this is all clear. We'll continue our discussion of the Industrial Revolution, and we'll go into detail about certain aspects of this process whereby the world itself undergoes profound transformation. Okay. See you in the next videos.